Alrighty, so in the interest of time, I think we'll go ahead and get started and we'll have folks continue to trickle in as they're able to. But once again, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for our final session of this DIS Skills Building Workshop series. My name is Talia Parker and I'm the Manager of Program Operations here at NCSD. We've had a fantastic workshop series so far focused on various aspects of skills building and professional development for DIS and STD programs. We were first led in a VCA training by Emily Fussell, and I'll drop the link to that recording in the chat in a few minutes in case you're interested in that and weren't able to attend. In our second session, we talked really robustly about DIS training ideas, plans, and resources, and had some great information sharing. And then today we're excited to round out the series with a focus on how STD directors and program managers can support career opportunities for DIS. So before we get started, I just wanted to cover some quick housekeeping notes. So today's session is being recorded and will be shared with all participants after the fact, so you can go back and reference it if you need to. Please put any questions you have for our speakers today in the chat box during the presentation, and we'll get to them at the end. You'll also have the opportunity to come off of mute and ask questions if you'd like to verbally at the end. And we'll also have some time for discussion. So please think about what programs or innovations, best practices, or even just like budding ideas you have on this topic that you might want to share with your peers during our discussion time. And just last but not least, I'll be launching a brief evaluation at the end of the session to gather your feedback on how you all think it went. So without further ado, I am going to introduce the first lovely speaker on our panel today. So first we'll be hearing from Brandy Roberts, who earned a Bachelor's of Science in Health Education from the University of Florida. After completion of her undergraduate studies, Brandy was accepted into the Public Health Associate Program with the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, where she worked at the State Health Department as a DIS and Emergency Preparedness Coordinator. She continued to further her knowledge and academics into earning a Master's of Public Health professional degree from the University of Arkansas for Medical Studies or Medical Sciences. She is affiliated with various civic and professional organizations such as the Arkansas Society for Public Health Education, Arkansas Public Health Association and National APHA, and the National Coalition of STD Directors. Brandy is currently the Sdi Prevention Program Manager at the Arkansas Department of Health. Brandy, thank you so much for joining us today, and I'll turn it over to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Talia. Can you hear me okay? Just want to do a quick sound check just to make sure everyone can hear me.
Yep.
All right, perfect. So thank you again for this opportunity to present on career opportunities for DIS. I know that is always an important subject, that everyone wants to talk about. And I want to go over just some of the things that we do here in the great state of Arkansas. So as Talia mentioned, I do serve as the STI Program Manager, in which I supervise our lovely 30 DIS across the state. So of course, this is something that I always come up with them, something that I do try to encourage with my DIS, and also use that as a means in order to develop our staff and then also to attract new individuals. Next slide, please. So just 3 quick objectives that I'm going to go over today. So number 1, wanted to talk about creating a career development program for a DIS in your state. Then I'm going to talk about the Public Health Educational Assistant Program or tuition payment program that we have here in the state here at the Arkansas Department of Health that our DIS are eligible for. And then I want to talk about some of the career opportunities for the DIS here in the state of Arkansas. Next slide, please. Okay, so what is career development program? So basically, it's just the process of choosing a career, improving skills, and advancing along a career path. So you may want to know why we're talking about that and why that is important. So that is important because within our program or agency, that's pretty much not an option. So in order to stand a chance in this competitive market, especially with the great resignation that we know of. We have to be competitive as far as how we want to attract staff, how we want to bring on new DIS staff, and also have additional opportunities for individuals when they come to the agency. As with most state health departments, including our own, we deal with low pay. So of course, we have to come with other benefits that would attract individuals so that we can bring on good talent in our organizations. Because this new workforce is not settling. As you know, they're all about getting the best bang for their buck. They want to know what's next in their career. How can I develop the experience and transferable skills that I need to move up in the agency or move around? And also, that will lead to an increase in pay. So it's important that we as program managers, as supervisors, that we look for areas of opportunity when it comes to supporting our staff development, especially when it comes to our DIS. And we should also be looking at ways in which we can help them be successful and then also meet their career goals. Next slide, please. So what is the benefit of having a career development program at your agency or within your program? The number one thing, as I mentioned, is that it attracts good applicants. So as I mentioned, one of the main challenges at our health department is low pay. It's often one of the first things that deter people from applying for state jobs. However, if you can offer learning opportunities, experiences, potential growth at the agency, most individuals will see that as a better opportunity than pay alone. Sometimes. It has been actually working out great for us, and I'm also going to talk about, how we do that here at the agency. The second thing is retaining your employees and reducing turnover. As I know, everybody deals with turnover. That's just one thing that unfortunately, as managers, as supervisors, that we have to deal with at an agency. However, having a career development program just shows those individuals that the agency and the program is committed to their growth and provides them with a career development opportunity. And that can make individuals more apt to stay. Now, you may lose them as a DIS, but you could gain a great Sdi Hiv, and that is a true story for me. So I did lose one of my best DIS in my program. However, she, because of the skills that we gave her, the education that she had, we were able to bring her on as our Sdi Hiv for the program. And now me and her are like best friends, and we work very great together because as a DIS, she learned those skills in which now she understands the population and the individuals who we deal with. And now she's able to transfer those skills to being able to help my programs as far as like data support and things of that sort. The last thing is increased productivity. So perceived growth opportunities offered by the employee can increase productivity. So you ask, how does that happen? Well, when you have employees that know that there's a potential for like a promotion or a leadership position, they tend to be motivated to do a good job, as they know that can lead to a good reference, with the experience and additional skill set that they have gained so that they can move up in ranks. And then also I'm going to talk about later when I talk about our educational assistant program, how that kind of ties into, career development and why it's important, for those individuals to kind of maintain like a satisfactory performance when it comes to their current job as a DIS, and how that's going to be beneficial in helping them with different programs, like I say, different opportunities and different career paths that we have here at the agency. Next slide, please. So how do you create a career development program for your DIS? So the first thing you can do as a manager, SC program manager or supervisor, is discuss during your one-on-one meetings with your staff. Most oftentimes, we on our meetings, we discuss performance, but this is a great opportunity in which you can carve out time to discuss goals. So that can be, what is next? What are your long-term goals in the agency? How can I, as a manager, help you with your growth? And so this will allow you to know, what it is that your DIS want to do next, if they're interested in epidemiology, if they're interested in being a program manager. You will be able to look out for different resources and individual trainings that they need that will be able to help them to develop that skill set so that they're able to actually move on to those different opportunities, those different positions that may open up. They'll now have that skill set in order to be able to be successful in that position. The second thing is creating an actual career development plan. So as we know, a plan is not a plan if it's not written down and it's not something that we actually do. So help your DIS, create a career development plan. This needs to be something that they are in charge of so they can take ownership for that and also be able to actually see how they're progressing. You don't want to force this on a DIS because, as you know, when you try to force things, of course, individuals aren't as apt to follow through. But if this is something that they own, something that they create with your guidance, they will be able to, kind of look at where they're going, have specific plans, have a goal, have the skill sets that they need to actually be able to obtain, that next position, and then also have certain time frames in which they want to be able to accomplish those individual goals and objectives for that whatever it is that they want to do as far as their career. Thirdly, you want to offer tools and resources. So those tools can come in the form of training, mentoring, coaching, setting them up for networking opportunities. So as supervisors or managers, oftentimes we know of different, trainings that become available. I know from like CDC, NCSD, a lot of that information, comes to our program managers, and we have to filter that information down to our DIS. So with you knowing that DIS's career goals, things that they're interested in, you're able to receive some of those resources, and also be able to hand that off to your DIS so that that can kind of help them with their career development path. And then lastly, okay, I see some individuals are having issues hearing me. Talia, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I'm hearing you loud and clear. I would suggest if folks are having trouble with audio, maybe disconnecting audio and reconnecting, or turning up your volume. It's working well for me. I'm using headphones. If people have headphones, that can help.
Okay.
It looks like most people, like other people, are able to.
Okay,
hear,
perfect.
so.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. I'll try to talk a
Thank
little
you
bit
so much.
louder so that you can hear me. Okay, and for the last thing we have is transparency. So I know that's just one of those things that's definitely very important and something that you definitely want to be aware of. So as I mentioned, when you receive those opportunities and trainings and positions for your staff or something that you might just get wind of, share that with your staff. Over my career, and I know others may have experienced this as well, where you have managers that are not forthcoming with sharing different opportunities. They don't want to share the information out of fear of losing staff, and of course not wanting to hire again, because I can tell you better than anybody else that is a pain having to hire individuals, because of course you have to go through the training process, the hiring process again, and that's no fun, for some. However, what tends to happen is they end up leaving anyway due to limited growth opportunities. So definitely you want to be transparent with your staff. Make sure that you are encouraging them to move up, because even with all my staff here at the health department, I tell them that this is an entry-level job. Gain your experience, get all the information while you're here, and kind of use this as an opportunity to move around to different positions. I don't expect any of my DIS to stay in a DIS position if their goal is to move up to different opportunities, different positions and things of that sort. Now, I do have some long-term DIS that just love being a DIS so much, and they tend to stay. However, again, I still encourage, different opportunities. send trainings and also try to encourage them to move around, move up to different positions, leadership positions, and things of that sort. Because as we know, DIS have a plethora of skill sets that they can use in different areas and can be successful in those career paths. Next slide, please. So what does this look like for a DIS? So some of those career development trainings and workshops, so those are going to be your professional conferences. So I know with COVID, a lot of our professional conferences moved over to virtual platforms. So for me here in the state, that allowed me the opportunity to send more of my DIS to like the SCD conference, the NCSD conference, APHA conference, because we didn't have the extra cost of hotels, travel, and things of that sort. So I did utilize that opportunity to send DIS to those professional conferences so that they can learn those different information, and then also be able to experience professional conferences, what it means to attend conferences. And then also, if they wanted the opportunity to do abstracts, speaking conferences, they can kind of see how that goes. So that was a great opportunity for us with COVID. I would say one of the pluses with COVID, in that we were able to give our DIS the opportunity to go to those professional conferences. Then you have your soft skills, which are always important. So that's going to be your communication, leadership, time management, problem solving, public speaking. Those are always great skills that you can develop in your DIS. And also those are great transferable skills, as we all know, that will make them successful in various other careers and also other programs of the sort. So with leadership skills, especially for when you have DIS that want to move up to DIS supervisory positions, oftentimes, you think just because you've been a DIS that you can be a DIS supervisor. That is not always the case, because the supervisory aspect is another bear within itself. So you have to have, those great leadership skills. You have to learn like the HR part of that. You have to learn, how to coach, how to develop employees, and all that additional, that's an additional skill set that comes with just being a DIS. Okay. So example, one of the things that I do here, for my DIS that want to become DIS supervisors or field operations manager, we have what we call backup supervisors. So we actually allow the DIS to train with the DIS supervisors. They kind of learn some of the ins and outs of what it means to supervise. And then in the event, once they get trained for some of those certain skills, when the DIS supervisor is out, we actually allow them to supervise the DIS staff while they're out, so that they can gain that skill set. So that does two things. Of course, that's going to give them the skill set in which they need to be an effective supervisor and a successful supervisor. And then also that's also giving them experience as well, because we are able to use that as experience when they're actually applying to become a DIS supervisor. So that is something that they can put on their resume, that I served as the backup or assistant supervisor in the event my supervisor was out, and that's a skill set that they can add on their resume. So that's just one of the things that we do here, here in Arkansas. And also it's effective because now as the Sdi program manager, I have that backup supervisor that's able to take over for the region, and they're able to manage the caseload, and I don't have to be involved in the cases and stuff. Still continue to get initiated out, they still get to get closed, and that person is able to assist out. So it's actually a win-win for the program. So they're getting the skills that they need, and then also I'm getting that assistance, having that person there when that supervisor is out. Secondly, you have your professional organizations. So we have Arkansas chapter of APHA. We have Arkansas SOFI, which are great leadership opportunities in which DIS can utilize. So they have different positions that you can run for, and which can develop some of those leadership skills. For communication and public speaking, we do have what is called Toastmasters at our agency, in which I encourage, DIS that are fearful of public speaking, want to improve their public speaking skills, I encourage them to join Toastmaster because that allows them to improve upon their public speaking skill set, and then also communication, which is very important when you're thinking about moving up into leadership positions. And then on the next couple of slides, I'm going to talk about the educational assistance program that we have here in the state. Next slide, please. So as a manager, how can I do this as far as professional development? So one of the things that we do here is, as a part of the DIS's evaluation, we have a component that is professional development, and that's actually a requirement for all of our supervisors. So it's important that, you know, the agency knows, how are we developing our employees? What are we doing? Okay, so that's not just sending them to trainings. For us, I kind of tasked upon my DIS supervisors is to make sure, again, you know, they're asking about those career goals and making sure that they're actually supporting the long-term success of their DIS. If, you know, they want to move on, you know, if they want to obtain additional trainings and things of that sort, that is something that we definitely support for our supervisors and actually encourage them to do for their staff. As a DIS, bring it up in your performance evaluation. If it's something that you want to do, if it's another skill or training or something that you want to go to, even if we're integrated program here in Arkansas. So I have had DIS that wanted to go into Ryan White. So I have connections with the Ryan White program manager. So I'm able to kind of facilitate some of those mentoring opportunities with different program staff so that they can get that skill set. So DIS, bring it up to your supervisor. Let them know that this is something that you want to do, and also, you know, your career goal, and actually work with your supervisor to assist you with those efforts. Mentoring. I do serve as a mentor for not only my DIS staff, but other individuals as well. So I have DIS or folks come up to me all the time, you know, that is interested in grant writing, you know, how to be a program manager. So I'm able to assist those individuals with some of that skill set as well. So I do serve as a mentor, and then also I encourage supervisors, you know, to serve as mentor as well, so that you can help those individuals gain that skill set. And then training opportunities. Of course, there's a plethora of trainings that, you know, DIS can take advantage of. And then also, as a supervisor, encourage those trainings, send them out to staff so that they have the opportunity to participate in those trainings to develop their skill set. Next slide, please. Educational Assistant Program. Next slide. So this is one of the biggest things that we offer at our state health department for our DIS staff and actually employees here at the state. So we actually cover up to 100% of educational expenses for individuals that would like to get their MPH, get their postgraduate. So we do offer support for doctoral programs. And then also we have a public health certificate. So that's for individuals that don't want to go into the MPH program, and they may have like a bachelor's degree in like business administration, and they want to have a public health certificate. They can go through that program, and that's supported by the agency. So we cover tuition, books, travel if they live outside of the Little Rock area, and then also any fees that they have. So the organization that we are affiliated with is the UAMS College of Public Health, which actually offers that program. Next slide. In order to be eligible for this program, you have to be with the agency for a year. You have to be accepted into the program or already enrolled. You have to have satisfactory performance evaluations. So that's what I was alluding to before, where you definitely have to make sure that you're performing in your current job in order to be eligible for that benefit. You have to have a letter of support from your supervisor. So your supervisor has to support you actually attending school. And then also, what is very important, be able to balance your work and school schedule. So as we know, DIS jobs are very stressful, especially now with COVID and now monkeypox. So you have to be able to balance those, your work and then also your school schedule. Next slide, please. So benefits to the Fcv program. So again, we attract the best talents because when the minimum degree for our DIS program is a bachelor. So any DIS that comes into my program with a bachelor's degree, that is the first thing that I encourage them to do. get your master's, your MPH, or get your certificate. It's free. Why not? Okay, we can't give you more pay, but I can give you a free degree. Okay, and then it enhances their DIS skill set. Is guaranteed employment for at least 5 years. So if you have 1 year of enrollment, so of course you have to wait until you've been here for 1 year in order to be eligible to apply for that assistance. Then the program is about 2.5, it took me about 2.5 years to finish the master's program. And then also you have the agency obligation of 2 years you have to stay here with the state, or you have to pay back those funds. So if you add that up, that's at minimum 5 years that you will have an employee. So I feel that's a good trade-off. You know, you don't have, you know, you get a whole degree, you know, and only have to stay here at the agency for 5 years. But that also is 5 years of experience that you now have along with your master's degree or your doctoral degree that you can use as, you know, experience for when moving around to different positions. And then also career advancement, which is self-explanatory. Next slide, please. So the advantages and disadvantages of this tuition reimbursement program. So advantages, no student loans. So we already know we have this public loan forgiveness programs going on. So of course, no student loans because the agency actually pays 100% of your tuition and costs for your MPH or doctoral program or the certificate. Flexible school and work schedules. So we do have a partnership with UAMS. So a lot of their classes are offered in the evening times, and also the agency actually works around the school schedules because we are definitely in support of individuals obtaining their MPH degrees and doctoral degrees here at the agency. More job opportunities and leadership positions that will become available with doing those courses. Public health experience, as I mentioned, that's now 5 years of public health experience that you have. So that along with your degree is going to make you more marketable to get in other positions. And the UAMS College of Public Health is an accredited public health program. So some of the disadvantages is no increase in pay. So just because you get a master's degree, that's not going to increase your pay in your position as a DIS. However, you can move up to another position, and of course, your pay will be increased that way. And as we know, you know, with you having now that public health experience plus your degree, that now makes you more marketable to other employers. So of course, we do have some individuals that after they've kind of served their time, you know, they've gotten their degree, they do decide to move on from the agency and accept other employments. But I mean, 5 years, I think it is what it is. Some employees do become overwhelmed with their school and work schedule. So that's something that we just have to be kind of mindful of, that they're able to kind of balance those efforts. And another disadvantage will be for individuals living outside of Little Rock, that they have to actually travel into Little Rock because we only have one school that we actually have that cooperative agreement with. However, we do pay for their travel expenses. But, you know, if you're in like Fayetteville or something like that, that's a 3-hour drive. So that might not always be a good, you know, avenue for those individuals outside of like the Little Rock Central area. Next slide, please. So these are just some of the career opportunities. Again, true story that my DIS have moved on to after they've obtained degrees or after they've gotten experience as a DIS. So DIS supervisor, field operations manager. I have a DIS as a public health advisor, and it's just a plethora of different career opportunities that you can have as a DIS, you know, once you gain that skill set, and then also with the various training opportunities that we have, you know, here with the state, and then also trainings that we offer within our program. Next slide, please. And that's all I have. So my information is here. If you have any questions or if you want to reach out to me about any assistance and things that we offer here at the state of Arkansas. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Brandy. That was such a fantastic presentation and the perfect way to kick us off on today's workshop session. So I'm really grateful for that. If folks have questions for Brandy and you don't want to forget them, feel free to put them in the chat box and we'll get to them after all of our presentations. But for now, I am going to introduce our next speaker. So Becca Scranton is a senior, oops, I just lost my notes. Hold on, folks. Okay, senior office chief with the Arizona Department of Health Services. She is trained as an STI epidemiologist and has worked alongside DIS for 5 years. All right, I'll throw it over to you, Becca.
If I can only find the unmute button. All right, can you see my slides but not my notes? Fabulous, awesome. Hi everybody, I am Becca. I am the Senior Office Chief at Arizona Department of Health Services, and today I'm going to take a little bit of a different approach to telling the story of how we've developed career opportunities in Arizona, and you'll find out why in just a second. So Arizona is composed of 15 geographically large counties, and there are 22 federally recognized tribes with reservation lands in our state. We are a home rule or decentralized state, which means our counties and tribes take the lead during the public health response, and our ADHS teams play more of a supportive role. So for STI control efforts, this means most of our investigators are located at the county and tribal level, employed by local health departments. And at the state level, we have a team of EPIs who provide surveillance support and technical assistance to local investigators. So to tell the story of DIS at the state level and how we've developed some career opportunities for them, we really need to travel back in time. I joined the ADHS STI control program in 2017. And at that time, we were already noticing some alarming trends. In 2018, our congenital cases had doubled for the first time in a decade, which wasn't that surprising when you looked at the massive increase we were seeing in all syphilis, which started in 2014. At that time, we were already seeing an increased demand from our local jurisdictions for investigative and epi support. But we had a couple of problems. We didn't have any DIS positioned at the state level in 2018, and we were in a hiring freeze. So our ability to create positions was basically non-existent. So I worked with my project officer, and we decided to give up some of our grant funding to support a CDC epi assignee to automate our surveillance processes, so we were less reliant on manual epi support. And it just so happened that one of my existing epis was accepted into that role by CDC, which left me with a vacancy. And although I couldn't, add positions, I could flip that epi role into a DIS role. And just given the requests we were receiving for investigative support, that was really something that we as a program decided was an important move for us to help support our locals. So now all we had to do was create an entirely new position description within our agency. Although there were a few EPIs who would occasionally do case investigation support at the foodborne team, there really wasn't a comparable disease like DIS position in our agency. And at that time, we didn't have a training plan for new state level DIS, and this position would be expected to support local investigators. So we really needed someone with previous experience. I worked with my supervisor to build out a PD, a position description. I explained how I considered this position to be a senior position, given the requirements for 2 years of STI investigative experience, and that we didn't really need specific educational requirements. We really just wanted that experience, given the highly specialized nature of the work. And I really wanted the salary to be kind of comparable to what an EPI would make. And our HR classified the position as a health program manager 1. And this is not the classification we wanted. We were really hoping to get a 2 or 3, given some of the pay gaps between our health program managers and our EPIs. And again, all that experience that I wanted on day 1. We did move forward with recruitment, and we were able to make an offer to someone from one of our medium-sized jurisdictions who had the necessary prerequisite experience as a local DIS. We were also able to negotiate for a slightly higher than regular HPM1 pay, given some of her educational background and years of experience. So we did get a little bit higher salary when we created that position. So finally, the search was over. This is Jennica. She was our first newly hired DIS, and she started with our team at the end of November in 2019. And in March 2020, she was promptly deployed to support the COVID-19 pandemic. which is a story I know many of you know very well. But before she was deployed to COVID-19, she helped develop several new investigation tools that would become very critical in the next few years. She developed new training programs for our local investigators. She created new investigation tools for our toolkit. She created an interview guide with sample open-ended questions to help novice investigators navigate all the key elements to an investigation, which was really great because we had a lot of EPIs and novice investigators jumping in to support during COVID. COVID really revealed the critical need for investigators at the state level, which is why our new DIS was one of the first people pulled into that response. She and my CDC EPI assignee were actually tasked with building out our state level COVID contact tracing program. And they would go on to develop a series of scripts, databases, and train now thousands of contracted workers to perform COVID-19 investigations in Arizona. So in under 2 years, my DIS had gone from being an investigator to running a newly created ADHS contact tracing program to becoming the senior office chief of a newly created Office of Rapid Disease Investigation. Now, that's not the trajectory all of your DIS are going to want to take, but that is where her career eventually led. Meanwhile, our STI control program was still attempting to provide syphilis investigation support between our ongoing COVID-19 deployments. We eventually hired a new investigator after our first DIS had been deployed for more than a year. And as with our DIS, as with Jennica, we hired someone with local STI investigation experience, and we were able to negotiate for the same pay as our first DIS, which at this point made this the new starting pay for all HIV STI investigators, which was good. Keep in mind, we're still not requiring advanced education at this point, which is good. That will come into play in a few slides. Things really started to ramp up in 2021 with our new DIS workforce funding. The ongoing COVID-19 pandemic plus the influx of public health funding had given us the power to ask for new positions to be created in spite of ongoing hiring freeze. So this is what our Sdi HIV prevention programs look like before DIS workforce. We were mostly on admin and EPI power at the state level and only had one investigator on the STI team. After consultation with our local health departments, we decided to create 30 new investigators. Many of these are just 2-year contracted positions, but those positions are at the regional level to provide additional support to counties, and they'll be assigned to a specific region of our state. This is what our structure looks like now. Since I could not directly supervise 30 new hires, we created chains of supervision, which meant that we could create new levels for our health program managers. So since we had intentionally never established educational requirements for our investigators, we were able to recruit persons from all different backgrounds and experiences while still keeping the base pay at the same rate used for our first 2 investigators. As we were recruiting for our positions, we made it very clear that we did not need persons with previous experience and that we would be prepared to provide the training needed to be a successful DIS. We also made it clear that the training would take 3 months and consists of 90 hours of self-paced web modules, so prospective candidates would be aware of the process up front. Within my office, our existing senior investigator, we had a one-on-one. We talked about, whether or not she was interested in, doing supervisory work, and she was. So she ended up applying for and accepting the position of one of our DIS coordinator roles. So that's this position. Oh, I don't think I have a mouse, but she was at the coordinator role. And then we also created another investigator coordinator on our HIV prevention team, although really all of our investigators and coordinators are cross-trained to do both syphilis and HIV at this point. And then we added 6 new senior investigators under them. Now, the senior investigators are basically in leads to our contracted investigators. And this would give us change of supervision, give us the ability to provide some of those one-on-ones and small group support settings. So that way we can really get to know our investigators, the skills they're coming in with, their interests, and focus on career development opportunities for those new investigators, and make sure folks are having support without horribly overwhelming our DIS coordinators. They still got a lot on their plate. This was a very, very ambitious plan to roll out. but they've done just a fantastic job of rolling with it and going through all the lovely growing pains that come with going from one investigator to now like 30 investigators. In addition to expanding investigators on our STI and HIV prevention teams, we also created this lovely little special projects team, which is technically under Jenica's rapid response investigation group, that office that grew out of COVID. But they're actually a shared resource with our STI HIV programs because they're cross-trained to do STI HIV investigations as well as whatever other morbidities pop up. So we've been using them to help with some of our closeout for 2021. We've leaned on them for support with our enhanced gonorrhea surveillance project. They're now getting pulled into monkeypox, as are some of our HIV STI investigators. The special projects was really intended to be more of a movable team, so that way we still have some STI HIV dedicated support no matter what's happening in the public health world. That's the vision, at least. We'll see how it plays out. And then again, our recruitment strategy really did enable us, because we weren't super picky about people's backgrounds. It really gave us the ability to recruit a nice, diverse workforce with so many different skills. And again, having those chains of communication, those one-on-one sessions, those small group sessions, those icebreakers really allow us to get to know our investigators and what their interests are and help develop those skills and help ensure that even our contractors feel like they're part of the team. In terms of pay increases for DIS, we still have some work to do. Our agency actually recently rolled out a new EPI career path that gives EPIs the ability to get increased compensation based on years of experience and advanced skills without having to make that transition to a supervisory check, which Brandy already mentioned is kind of so we're hoping for a similar path to be developed for health program managers for our DIS, but that's still kind of in the early stages of the discussion. Our agency has also rolled out other incentives, so including things like spot awards. So if they do work on a special project that meet certain qualifications, we're able to recognize that work. This is, again, just for our ADHS employees, but these are some of the incentives that we offer. We offer tuition reimbursement for our investigators who want to pursue different degrees and maybe a different career path that aligns close enough to the work that we do, that we can make that justification. We also offer loan reimbursement programs. So for some of our investigators who came into the field with a bachelor's in public health or with an MPH or other similar degree, we're able to help them make payments on their loan. And a really cool feature to that program is even if their payment is below the maximum reimbursement rate, they're allowed to claim the maximum and make extra payments using that maximum payment. So that's a really, really nice feature that they can take advantage of if they have a degree they're trying to pay off. Then we're also, let's see, other things that we've given them, merit-based pay increases, which that hasn't happened in our state in about 10 years. Our governor just released a 10% base pay increase for state employees, which we very much appreciate. That's been able to give us more competitive salaries for our investigators. There's still a long way to go, for sure, but given some of the recent momentum, we are very optimistic. And certainly there are other ways beyond just pay to recognize and develop the skill sets of your DIS. So again, we leverage those one-on-ones and small group meetings to build rapport, to learn about their interests. This has enabled us to really match our investigators with special projects when they pop up. We've been able to leverage some of the skills that they come into the workforce with and some of the interests that they have to really say, oh, this special project came up for monkeypox. Can you help out with these things? And that gives them the ability to kind of see and learn and grow within the program. I've had one-on-one meetings with some of my investigators who were interested in more of like the grants and the management side. So I've broken down some of that looks like. Others who want to know a little bit more about coding, I've sat down and we've played around with some coding, again, trying to make the experience of working for the health department really custom to their interests to where we can. And this not only just allows us to better serve our communities, it also, we can better serve our communities by more fully utilizing their skills, and then they get a better experience by actually getting to pursue their interests. And we also have lots of flexibility. Definitely still teleworking these days where possible. We do some field deployments, so we do ask that our investigators live in Arizona, so that way we can deploy them to certain areas when outbreaks pop up. But they have a lot of flexibility with telework. We will also do, to some extent, flexible work schedules. We have investigators who are working on degrees right now, so we try to accommodate that where possible. Part-time positions at the state level are not easy to do given the hiring freeze, but some of our contracted positions for persons who needed to go part-time for a period of time, that is a little bit more doable. So that's really helpful for folks who may have families or other obligations or be working on a degree. And then, yeah, I think that's all I want to say here. And then in addition to supporting career paths within our agency, we also do try to work with our local health departments to raise awareness about some of the community resources that NCSD offers for investigators, to make sure we're communicating about opportunities to travel to conferences and to get experience. We've also been able to cover sometimes coding experience for some of the EPI staff. So again, trying to foster career development for our locals to the extent that we can. Sometimes be a little bit more complicated given some of the subcontracts processes that we have to go through. And the travel reimbursement is also a little special. So that can make it tricky, but we do try to provide those opportunities where possible. I've also, as we've created hierarchies for our DIS to create pathways for advancement at the state level, we've tried to model this approach at local levels as we've been able to expand their number of DIS through our local clinics. We've been able to use DIS salary estimates provided by NCSD by region to help promote more competitive salaries in our locals who are creating new supervisory level DIS positions. And we've been able to also lean on the fact that, hey, you know, the entire nation is recruiting to fill, you know, lots and lots of investigators. We need to be competitive. We've been able to lean on that a little bit at the local level to create more competitive salaries for our investigators, because we know the work they do is incredibly valuable and often under-recognized. And then if you have any questions, I'd be happy to take them probably at the end. I know we're concerned about time, so if you throw them in the chat, I can answer them in the chat. Shout out to Faith and Myra, our amazing DIS leads, and to Jana and Bryce, our special projects leads. We set out an ambitious plan, and these guys have done an amazing job of executing it. If you want to connect with me, my contact information is on the slide, and I'll throw it in the chat.
Thank you so much, Becca. So many amazing ideas and initiatives coming out of Arizona. So thank you for sharing that with us. Our final presenter, let me go ahead and share my screen again. Let's see, current slide, is Anthony Merriweather from Alabama. I don't know if you've all noticed, but we have a theme of A states today. So Anthony Merriweather is the director of the Division of STD Prevention and Control at the Alabama Department of Public Health, and he's served in this role since 2009. So Anthony, I will pass it over to you. Anthony, are you able to unmute? I see you on the phone there.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, I was talking to myself.
No problem.
And it was an interesting conversation, by the way. All right, hey, thanks everyone. Hope everyone is having a good afternoon. It's good being on the call with our sister states, Arkansas and Arizona. So I'll go through our slides. We've been kind of busy here in Alabama lately dealing with monkeypox. So, okay, so I just want to talk about health equity and hiring in Alabama, what we're trying to do in order to expand our workforce. One of the issues that we're having in Alabama is we have 0 individuals applying to be a DIS. And this has been going on at least for the last probably 5-8 years. It has really gotten worse since COVID. No one wants to go out in the field and do disease investigation work, which is the primary job of what we do here in STD, because we do investigations on all STDs to include HIV. We assisted with COVID, and now we've got roped into doing investigations on all monkeypox positive cases within our state. So one of the things that we looked at is trying to go to the next slide. Is we looked at developing internships with our one of our major universities, which is the University of Alabama at Birmingham, which houses one of two schools of public health within our state. So we went into a partnership with them last year, back in the fall, to develop what we call an internship program, which allows us to be able to pay for up to 5 public health students to do an internship with our program as well as with our sister program in STD. It is a paid internship. They have to do a minimum of 180 hours per semester, and they get paid $15 per hour. And what we're trying to do is to pique their interest, and after they graduate, that will make them want to apply to work either as a DIS or as an epidemiologist within the Bureau of Communicable Diseases, which houses both the divisions of STD, infectious disease and outbreak, immunization, and TB, because all 4 of our programs are in dire need of DISs and epidemiologists. So part of the concept for this is that the interns will shadow an STD DIS. They will do STD investigations by tagging along with a seasoned DIS. They will conduct disease intervention activities. They will perform case management. They will do PrEP education on individuals who are HIV negative, but who are at risk for contracting HIV. They will do referral for care for those diagnosed with STI or with HIV. And they will do what we call an internship project, where they're being assigned a project. So this year we were only able to get 1 intern for the summer semester. She came in and she's done a fantastic job. She's interviewed about 10 STD patients, mainly syphilis and HIV, across the state. And her internship project was looking at congenital syphilis case rates across the state. And part of her work was looking at designing an informatic card for OBGYNs, which we were able to get the final product on that today, and hopefully we'll get that approved through our administration in order to distribute that through all of our OBGYNs across the state. It basically depicts the increase in congenital syphilis case rates, as well as increased cases and case rates for women of childbearing age in Alabama going back from 2015 through the end of 2021. So we hopefully be able to get that distributed out later on this year. Next slide. Thank you. Talking about our DIS that we currently have on staff, I have currently about 56, 58 DIS total across the state that do STD, HIV investigations. We have basically 3 pay plans, 3 salary pay plans in Alabama. We have a state pay plan salary. We have one for Jefferson and one for Mobile County. The reason we have 3 different salary ranges is both Jefferson and Mobile County health departments were established prior to there being a state health department. So they are semi-autonomous counties with their own HR program. What we're trying to do is to bring everybody's salary up to a reasonable level, because right now, if you start out as a state DIS on the state salary, we can only start you out at $33,000. That's not a lot for someone who's graduating from college with a bachelor's degree, because our prerequisite for DIS is you have to have a bachelor's degree in mainly one of the sciences. So in order to start someone out, we try to get those pay raises increased so that we can offer more at the starting salary, as well as lengthen out those who are topped out. So next slide. So this is our state pay plan in which we are trying to increase our salaries. You can see right now our entry level is about $33,000 for a DIS, just graduating from college or just wanting to apply for a job. We're trying to increase that up to a starting salary of $38,000 and topping them off at $70,000. Our next DIS is our DIS senior. You can see there from the graphics, we start our DIS seniors off at 37. We're trying to get an increase of about $5,000 to be able to start them off at least at 42, and hopefully also increasing that top end salary to $77,000 or $78,000. For our program managers, we're trying to increase their starting salary by about $3,000 so that we can begin them at 48 and then have their top end ending at $90,000. We had to go back and resubmit our request for increased salary ranges because the state finally went ahead and they submitted a new salary pay scale for those who are topped out. They gave 4 additional step raises for those individuals that are topped out, so we had to go back and redo our salary. So we're hoping that this will be approved by state personnel, hopefully by the end of the year, so that we can bump our salaries up for all of our incoming staff as well as our current staff. The state did provide a 4% salary increase for all state workers this year, which is great. We're happy to see that because the cost of living has increased. We're just trying to figure out how we're going to pay for that 4% salary increase because there's been no increase in our state budget for the upcoming fiscal year, which begins October 1. So we're trying to get those logistics figured out right now. Next slide. Now, comparing what we have on the state salary pay scale, for those that work in Jefferson County, which is JCDH, their DIS pay plan differs totally from ours. So currently, their staff as an entry-level DIS, as an entry-level, they are paid $70,000, almost $71,000 as an entry-level DIS. As compared to on the state scale, we're starting them out at 33, trying to get them bumped up to about $38,000, $40,000. So that is a major cost difference. And if you're wondering why their cost salaries are so different, Jefferson County is where our major metropolitan area is, which is Birmingham. So they pay their individuals a whole lot more than we pay on our state salary. As you can see, their DIS seniors are also paid a lot more. They're topping out, their average salary is about $82,000, and the program manager there is making about $94,000 per year. Next slide. If we look at Mobile, we were able to get Mobile salaries increased this year. They were, their DIS were starting at about 36, 37. We were able to get that salary increase to about $41,000 this year. Just was approved by their state personnel back in May, I believe. And our program manager salary also got increased. As you can see, she's beginning entry level is $48,000, and they're now topping out at $76,000. Now, I do want to say the state STD program, we do pay for all our DIS across the state to include those that work in both Mobile and Jefferson County. But one of the biggest impediments for us getting people to apply for a state position is the wide disparity in salaries across both the state, Mobile, and Jefferson County DISs. So hopefully we'll be able to get that changed and hopefully bring some of our state employees up at least to a competitive salary level with the other two public health districts in Alabama. We want to be able to do this so that we can not only hire staff, but also maintain the current staff that we currently have instead of them jumping, leaving the program and going to work either in other programs within the state or leaving the state altogether. Next slide. So this, I just wanted to go over this with everyone, and if you have any questions, please just let me know.
Great, thank you so much, Anthony. Well, thank you again to all of our presenters. We've reached the questions portion of our session today. I haven't seen too many questions come through the chat, so if you have questions, feel free to put them in now. I have a question for all of our presenters, so maybe I'll kick us off with that, and then as questions come in, we can address those. But this is for all the presenters. I'm curious what kinds of strategies you might use or suggest when it comes to engaging with leadership to support these kinds of initiatives and programs. Have you run into any obstacles? How have you overcome those obstacles? Anything you want to provide to that would be very helpful.
Some of the obstacles that I've run into in Alabama has been our administration looking at DISs, because it doesn't matter if you're a DIS in TB, STD, immunization, we're all on the same pay scale. But not all DIS are the same. Some have more skill sets. So our administration looks at, well, you know, we're looking at DIS that do IDNO. They don't go out and do field work. So how can we justify increasing salary for all DIS when, you know, you guys are not all operating and functioning the same? So that's been one of our biggest issue. And now we've been pulled into monkeypox, and I'm hoping that they will be able to, maybe we need to do different DIS categories, those that work in, let's say, STD and TB versus those that work in immunization and infectious disease and outbreak. Maybe they need to develop two separate salary paths for the various divisions. I don't know if they will do that, but that's something which I am definitely advocating for.
I can go next. So that is currently one of the challenges we have here at the agency, in which due to leadership changes, because before we did have a center director that was a DIS before, and then also a secretary of health that was in support of the STD and HIV program. So we had their support before, but leadership has changed, so we don't have that anymore. So right now we have to convince, you know, leaderships the value of the DIS. Even with the DIS supplemental grant and funding that we just received, we were not able to use that to supplement or increase our DIS salaries, because we actually just received a small increase statewide a couple of, maybe about a year ago now. And we actually had to contract those positions out for outside DIS positions. So pretty much, like I said, you know, we're just kind of trying to convince, you know, the agency, you know, the value of the DIS, the skill sets that they obtained. With COVID, the DIS were only pulled in after the fact because they feel as though nurses are individuals that, you know, were responsible for the contact tracing efforts and things of that sort. So again, you know, we didn't get the opportunity there to kind of prove, you know, what value we bring to the agency. I hope I don't bite myself in the butt with this, but I have kind of volunteered to take over the monkeypox initiative here in Arkansas, just because, you know, I think that would be an opportunity for us to kind of prove, you know, that the DIS do serve a purpose here and it is going great right now. I'm going to say right now, right now, because we are able to use our surveillance system because we're on PRISM, which of course was designed for contact tracing. With COVID, they used RedCap and some other systems, which was a hot mess because, of course, that's not designed for contact tracing. And now, we were able to develop a flow sheet, a process, and as y'all know, this is what we do is no different than SCD. And we're able to kind of, leadership is actually now seeing, the value that the DIS brings. So definitely we're in that process right now where we're just trying to convince, leadership that, like I say, the DIS do have that skill set. We can do this work. You don't need a nurse to do that. Actually, the nurses didn't do a great job at it, which is why I offered to take over, because their interviews were clinical focused. They weren't getting information that we needed. And it just made it so difficult to try to do those contact investigations on the monkeypox cases because they don't know what type of information to ask. I know they're nurses and I know they're supposed to know that, but they kind of interview from a clinical perspective and not so much an investigative perspective. And so it was making it difficult for us to be able to kind of do after the fact interviewing. So that's kind of my take on it. Like I said, we're in that process where we're convincing, but yeah, it's definitely challenging because people just think that, they just be out there, spinning their wheels, calling STD cases, and some just don't see the value of the DIS.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's been easier these days to negotiate for the value of investigators because, like I said, we have been asking for state level DIS for years prior to COVID. And then when COVID hit and they were like, oh, we only have one in the agency from STI. I think we finally got some of the recognition. But again, I think Brandy and I were actually chatting about this before we started. We were a lot more lenient when we were doing hiring for our COVID investigators because, again, they didn't necessarily need to ask quite so intimate questions. But even that, I think, wound up biting us in the butt a little bit. I think if you start hiring from within communities, people who already get it, you're way better off. It saves you so many long, downstream issues. So we were very intentional about our hiring process. And it does make it a little bit tricky, I think, negotiating for quality pay when you're removing some of those educational backgrounds. I think I've got a lot of support from my leadership, but we're also there are things that go well above our agency that will impact our ability to create pay increase opportunities for our investigators and to maybe create opportunities. I would agree with Anthony. Yeah. From an HR perspective, a DIS is a DIS, and we know that's not the case in practice. There are some very specific skills that our investigators have. So yeah, it's an ongoing process.
Definitely. Thank you all. I also saw Becca answered the question about education requirements in the chat. Do you have anything you'd like to add to that, Becca? Or
just thank you so much for the comment. It's such a critical piece to keep in mind as you're recruiting. We actually, in addition to removing educational requirements we did a lot of proactive outreach to communities to make them aware of the positions and actually message them in a way that was simple and easy to understand, not just a massive 3,000 page posting on our state HR webpage. We were also very intentional about doing phone screens with a lot of people. Even if their resume seemed a little thin, you really don't know a DIS until you get them on the phone and start talking to them. So we did a lot of screening for rapport building before we even interviewed someone. And then when we interviewed them, we were very intentional about screening for certain biases toward communities, asking questions about, oh, have you, you have a client who mentions that they engage in substance use and they're 3 months pregnant. What recommendations would you provide to this client, and see what they say? So yeah, I think there's a lot you can do beyond just the educational requirements to make sure you're really recruiting the right folks for these positions who will care about the community. And that goes a long way too.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. I also saw a question for Anthony here in the chat. How long did it take for your internship program to be approved, and who did you work with within your organization to support the program?
Oh gosh, we started this back in, I want to say the spring of 21, I believe, just trying to get it up off the ground. We work with our HR department in order to basically see what organizations we could actually partner with. And so we had UAB, which is what we already had a program, internship program established with UAB for their school of nursing program. So we just kind of tagged along with that, and with our HR department, when they signed off on it, of course, my boss signed off on it as well, and the state health officer signed off on it, and we did a contract. And so everything runs through our HR department, and we were able to advertise through the School of Public Health at UAB, and we got some applicants back, and Monteville was the one applicant that we actually chose. Now, she graduates in December. So what we told her, because we just like her work ethic and just her willingness to get out there and work and to see our patients, we told her when she gets ready to graduate around about October, November, give us a call. We're going to make sure she's on the registry, so hopefully we can be able to pull her off and bring her into our bureau.
Fantastic. And that's what you want, right? You want the interns to turn into staff. So that's fantastic. If anybody has any additional questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I do want to take a few minutes, though. I'm going to stop sharing my screen to turn the floor over to all of you wonderful participants. I'm so grateful for all of the great information our presenters shared, but I know that we all bring experience and expertise to this conversation, and I'd love to just have a few minutes of open discussion or sharing. If anybody present on the call wants to share some of their programs or initiatives that they've started, or if they're running into any barriers and want to talk through them with some peers, really anything. So I'm going to leave the floor open. I know it can be intimidating, but we are all here for you. Feel free to use the chat as well. So any thoughts or ideas that anybody wants to share, or something that resonated with them in the presentations?
I can jump in really quickly. Hi, my name is Jennica. I am the new STD prevention specialist out of Oregon. Use she, her pronouns. I'm very new, like a month in. I found this to be incredibly helpful, and I'm kind of just gleaning information from what other states are doing. I know that Oregon is pretty unique in the way that we are decentralized, like some other states are. So I will say that Becca, your presentation was very interesting to me, as Arizona is also decentralized. So I definitely will be reaching out to you to hear more about the way y'all work with your local counties. But everyone was really wonderful. So I just want to say thank you for how informative this has been. So thank you to all the presenters.
Thank you, Jennica. I'm so glad to hear that. Anyone else want to jump in? Jennica started us off perfectly. Any other ideas that you all want to share? Questions that you have for others? I'm not afraid of awkward silence, so I'm gonna sit here for a few more minutes if anybody wants to jump in. I also know that everybody is super busy, so I understand if you can't.
This is Anthony. I have one final comment, and I'm gonna jump off. I gotta get back on monkeypox.
Please.
The only way that we're going to be able to advance and grow our workforce and maintain the staff that we have is to continue to advocate for the resources that we need. COVID and now monkeypox has provided us the opportunity to highlight the capability and the competency of our staff as compared to other programs. As I think my colleague in Arizona mentioned earlier in her presentation, that her administration thinks staff, the nurses, are the end-all be-all to disease investigations, which we all know is not true. That's why they have us. So I think if we continue to push and advocate for our staff, because we're being pulled in so many different directions, whether it's doing our standard STI, HIV investigation, partner notification, and referral services, or being pulled into hepatitis and C investigations because of outbreaks, or Hep A, or now COVID and monkeypox. I think that is the way we can kind of continue to advocate for the resources. And I think if we do that collectively through NCSD, that will definitely serve our programs long after we have moved on to something else.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for adding that, Anthony. That's a great point. And I know you have to jump off, so just a huge thank you to you for taking the time to present today. And for that final point, I really appreciate that. Anyone else want to add something? I think that was a perfect ending point, honestly, though. Before folks jump off, I'm going to launch a super quick poll to gather your feedback on today's session. And also feel free to email me if you have any additional thoughts or questions. But we're really grateful, so grateful for all of our presenters today, and for all of you for taking the time to attend. Like I said, I know things are very, very busy right now with monkeypox and everything else that's already going on. So we really appreciate your time, and we hope this was helpful. If you have additional feedback, feel free to let me know. And like I said, we'll be sending out the recording of this in a few days, so be on the lookout for that. Well, I think that's it. Thank you again, everyone. And I hope that you all have a great rest of your Thursday afternoon. Happy Friday Eve. All right. Bye, everyone.